Hey, church family, this is Pastor Joe, and many of you have already started reading in Exodus as part of our Read the Book project. This is a project that's going to help us read through the entire Bible over the next 2 years. And as you begin to read in Exodus, I want to give you a few things to help you understand the book and understand, hopefully, the layout of the book a little bit better. First, this book really picks up the narrative that we read in Genesis, and it tells the story of Joseph's family. It tells the story of the nation of Israel as they come out of slavery. But it also tells the story of how the nation of Israel begins to establish itself as a people. And the story is really anchored by this one episode right in the middle as the Israelites meet with God at Mount Sinai. In fact, it can be a little hard to read the book through because of the different sections. It starts out in narrative, and then we get to Mount Sinai, and all of a sudden we have this section of law, and then it's a little bit of narrative and a little bit of law, and then the book ends on a narrative tone. But what I want you to see through this is that there's one theme that ties really all of Exodus together, and it's this: that God calls us out to draw us in. God calls us out of our slavery and our bondage. That's what the first part of the book is about, with the story of Israel coming out of Egypt. But he does that to call us into his presence. And that's really the entire rest of the book. God calls them out of slavery in Egypt, and he leads them into the wilderness to meet with them. And then we see that he gives them very specific instructions on how to build a tabernacle and how to meet with him so that they may continue to be in his presence. So God calls us out in order to draw us in. There are also three things that I want you to really pay attention to as you read this book. One is God's miraculous deliverance of Israel from slavery. For us as believers, this should be a sign, this should be a picture, an image of what it means for God to call us out of the slavery and the bondage of sin. Second, I want you to look at the return of the presence of God. His return on Mount Sinai, and then at the very end of the book, his return as his presence fills the tabernacle. And what does it mean for God's presence to live with us? Because, see, that's really going to become important as we go to the New Testament and we read about Jesus, who is Emmanuel, God with us. Third, I want you to read about the gift of the law and think about the idea that the law was given as a means of establishing a relationship. You know, a lot of times we talk about the fact that what we need is a relationship and not religion. But really the truth is that God has always used his laws, he's always used religion as a means to help us find relationship with him. And so the law wasn't a curse. The law was really a gift. And I want to encourage you as you read through Exodus to begin praying about the grace that God gave in the law. The grace that God showed a broken people and allowing them to remain in his presence. So remember, God calls us out to draw us in. And then as you read these three specific things through the book, I want you to begin to ask, God, how have you delivered me? God, how do you desire for me to live in your presence? And then, God, what have you given me? What have you given me in your word to help me be able to do that and help me to see it as a gracious gift, not as a curse, not as a burden. Church family, I'm really enjoying reading through the scripture in these ways. I'm thankful for the men that we've borrowed from the Gospel Coalition. I'm thankful for friends in ministry who have allowed us to use some of their ideas. So I hope you're enjoying these readings as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me as we continue to read the book.